JavaScript top 10 tricky interview questions you must know if you're going for a JavaScript interview. Welcome to Coding Locker, guys. This is Chandra Shwaryani, and in today's tutorial, we'll do the practical demo of these questions. And one more thing, these 10 are not the all the questions. I have created, around 30 or 40 questions. You can have a look to this Coding Locker website in the blogs. Also, have created few videos on that. Today, I'll just focus on the top 10 questions. So for that, let me open my incognito window. Okay. Now here, what I'll do, I'll open my console log. Here we will do the practical. So let's see what is our first question, which is the difference between double equals to and triple equals to. So let's suppose if I take one, let me increase the font as well. Okay, let's suppose I create a one variable a and this is another variable, right? Now what if I do a double equals to b? So you will see the output is true. And how the output is true? Because we are using the double equals to. But if I do the triple equals to, then the output would be false. The reason behind this, because it is triple equals to is checking the type as well. So if you see the type of a, that is number, whereas type of b is a string. So that is the first and the basic difference between uh, the double equals to and the triple equals to. Now next, if I show you how actually under the hook it happens. So when you have this variable where a equals to 10, so and another one is this one. So if you have a string variable, then what JavaScript it would first do, it would try to convert the b, and the b becomes the 10, which is a number. So if there is a string, it will try to convert this into the number. Now if you have a kind of like true and where b equals to 1, now again, since this is a boolean type, so what JavaScript under the hook would do, it will try to convert this true value into the numbers. So since true's value is 1, so that is how it is converted, right? So you can see this is how happens. There are other things as well. This is the primitive one. We can see for the objects as well. We will see in a bit. But first of all, let me clear this. So let's suppose you have an object. Let's say age 20, right? And let me create another object, similar one, and name it like b. So are they equal? So you would say yes, a equals to b, but the output is false. JavaScript does not think that this is equal. Similarly, if you go for the triple equal to, it is still different. So how it is different and why it is not, we are not able to see, even though they are same, we will see in a bit in our next question. Before this, we have what is the difference between null and undefined in the JavaScript. So null, where a equals to is your null, whereas undefined is undefined. So null is something, some value which you have assigned to any variable that is indicating to any value. Whereas one undefined is basically there are number of scenarios, then you can expect the undefined. So let me start with the basic one. Let's suppose if I try and do null equals to undefined, so you'd see the output is true, null equals to undefined. But if I try with triple equals to, it says me false. Why? Because the type of null, again we have seen that triple equals to always check the type of. So the type of null is object, whereas type of undefined is undefined, and that is the reason why they are different. Okay, now we'll see in what scenarios. I said there are a number of scenarios where you will find the undefined value. So let's suppose you create any variable, maybe my name, and now if I try to access my name, then you would see the value is undefined because the variable is declared but its value is not defined. Similarly, let's suppose let me create a method, and this method is doing nothing, it's simply console.log coding locker maybe. Right now if I press enter and call this method print my name, you would see it is printing coding locker since it is written in the console.log, and then it is saying the undefined to us because a function who is not returning anything is what we call the undefined value. So also let's take another example where you create an object. Let's say my object, and let me provide any property, let's say name in coding locker maybe, and press enter. So if I try my object dot name, it would give me the name. But what if I try to get the ID? So the object which does not contain that property also will result in the undefined value, right? Similarly, a function's parameters which you have passed, and actually you forget to pass, then you would get the undefined value as well. So this is how or what is the difference between null and undefined. Now the question is, how would you compare two objects in JavaScript? So we have seen in our first question that how would you compare. So let's suppose you have uh, let me create a same object maybe, which is which is having a name, and now let me copy and mm, mm, paste it here. This one another. Now you would say these both are same, but how do I compare? So there is no way in JavaScript to check using they are equal or not using these symbols equals to or triple equals to. The only way is that you have to have the for loop and compare the each property. And in order to like increase the performance, at first you just take the first object A and then count its property, how many properties or how many properties length. So we right now we are having the same one property in each of the object, and if they are same, then you start taking one property and taking its value and comparing this value it's with the other one. That is the only way you can achieve the comparison of objects in the JavaScript, right? But here is another problem, right? So the problem is, let's suppose what we create another object. Let me create another object. Inside the object, let's say language array maybe, and it is also having a property called C sharp, let's suppose, and let me close this and paste it here, right? So what has happened here? So in the loop, you have to have another inner loop because this is another object. So you have to check a dot name, which is the coding locker, but a dot lang array dot name, and then you have to do b dot lang array then name. Are they equal or not? So there is one more problem for you, right? Then there can be one more scenario. Let's suppose you have let me create one more time. Let me get rid of this thing. I'm just telling you the problems what you might face while comparing these two objects in JavaScript. That is not easy. That is what I said. So let's suppose your value is NaN, right? Now in the loop, I'm doing just without the loop, but in the loop, let's suppose you check this a dot name equals to b dot name, and see the result is false. So you would say even though they are same, but why it is returning the false? So the reason is in JavaScript, NaN is not going to be equal even to itself. This is always false. So these are the challenges you will always find while comparing objects in the JavaScript, and that is the reason you have to go for the third-party libraries or underscore JS who has already built-in methods to verify these objects are equal or not. So that is about our third question. Moving to the fourth question, JavaScript prototype. So many times we are asked with a tricky questions. So what is a question? Not the exact this example. This is just an example, but similar kind of example. Let's suppose we have a date where date equals to new date. What is the date? Date is today's date. Now the thing is, let's suppose I want to get the next day date, right? So how do I get? So this is the question. So since date is not the predefined function of a date class, that is why we get this exception. So how do we solve this problem? So for that, what we need to do, we have to inject a method in the date class by using this date dot prototype dot get next day date. You can name it anything. For me, this is your custom name, right? And after that, you have to take the instance of the date. Let's say current date, this dot get date, and this would give you this is a date one, so this would give you the current date. After that you can return a new date simply by like this dot set date, and in the current date you have to do the plus one, right? And I think we have closed this one. We have syntax error. Let me find date dot get next date. We have started where current is dot get. Okay, we have current date, and then this is a closing one. So it looks too fine to me. Let me find. Okay, so here is what I have missed, equals to function. Okay, now okay, we have the function now. If I do date dot get next date for me, you would see we have the date 31st, right? So this is how you can create the prototype. And that's not all. If you have an array method, if you have any class, sorry, then in that you can, using the prototype, you can add the methods, and then you would be able to get the desired result. Now scope and hoisting with an example. Again, let me show you on in the console one. So let's suppose you have any number. I'm going to take this time. Let's suppose this is a 1. Now I create a function, and the function name is b. And what I'm going to do, I will try to change the value of any number inside the method, right? And now I'm returning. After that, I'll call this b method, and I am going to print console.log the value of any number. Can you guess the output? We have a global variable 1. In the local, I have changed the value to 10. Then I'm calling this b method, which is changing the value of any number. Then I'm asking it to return any number. So the output would be 10 as you expected correctly. Now let me make a little change in that method, right? So after this any number and the return, I'll create another function, and the function would be with the same name. So let me provide the curly braces and then b console.log. Can you guess the output this time? The output would be 1. Why this is 1? Because in JavaScript, whenever you have the functions and the variables, the declaration always reaches to the top. So what has happened, let me rephrase this, that what has happened when you created this function here in under the hook, JavaScript actually created a function here like this, where any number equals to function, right? Like this. So the variable declaration function declaration shifts to the top, and then you would see this is your global variable, sorry, and this is your local variable. So since this is a local variable and they always gets the precedence, so when you are setting the value of any number which is a 10, actually you are setting a value of this any number, not this one. And that is the reason global variable was untouched, and you got the output to 1. So that was the reason. Okay, now move to the next question, which is clauses inside loops. Okay, so let me clear this one, and let's suppose you have an for loop I equals to, this is again going to be a tricky one, I less than 10, I plus plus. Okay, simple loop. Let me start a curly braces and close a curly braces. Inside that, I'm going to add a set timeout function, which is like this, right? Now this would expect two parameters. So in the first one, let me first of all print the value of I, and here let me provide the 10. Let me close this one, press enter. So what I want, let me little bit do the formatting. Okay, so what I'm saying, that print the value of I each time. So you would say that the output would be 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, but actually it won't. It will give you 10 times 10, and the reason is this function will be called once after the cycle is completed, for loop cycle is completed, and then it calls the set timeout, and that time the i's value is 10, and that's why it prints you the 10 value. Now how do I correct this? How do I get the output of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10? So for that you have to make it a if as a ify function. So how do I make this ify function? So let it be as it is. Now here maybe I have to rewrite this. So instead of I make a change. So where I equals to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and then open and close the braces. Then again add your method, set timeout, and then again create a function, and in the function then you do a console.log, right? And what you were printing I. Now what change you need to do, if you just close the bracket, right? So you have to pass the value of I into this ify function and return it from here, and another parameter which was the 10, right? So this is how it works. Now if I press the enter, you would see the exact output we were wanted. So that is how closures work in the JavaScript. Next is what is the this. So this is a little tricky for us. Like there are let me open my console one more time. So let's suppose this is your this, right? So this is basically your window. So if I say is this equals to window, you would see yes, they are equal. So let's suppose if I create a my name variable, let's say coding locker. Now if I do window dot my name, see, so I'm setting the value in the global one, and actually this is referring to the window one. So that's why my name is added into the window one. So whenever you're executing any function, so in the context of object, the object becomes the value of this. So how let me clear that what I just said to you. So let's suppose you have an method. Let's suppose my object. In the object you have name property, coding locker, and then after that let's suppose you create in a method like get my object, right? Get my object, and in the object let me create a function. What this function is doing, it is just return this. So if I press another enter, and I think I should be good. Now if I call this my object dot get my object, so what it would give me, it will not give me the window, rather it would give me the function object, right? That is what I said. So inside a set timeout function, which we have seen a bit, so here you will find this is your window. So this is going to act differently in different scenario. So let's suppose in the DOM, in the DOM, when let's suppose you click any of the element, then on the this, then you will find the this element as a in the this property. So this behave differently for different instances, right? Now another question is pass by reference versus pass by value in JavaScript. Again, I'll try to cover this with an example. So for the primitive types, when I say this is let's say where a equals to 10, this is your primitive one, right? Boolean one, string one. So they are always passed by the values. And for the objects, so let me take an example. Let's suppose you have one object, and let's create a property of name equals to coding locker, right? Now you have any number, which is your number. So this is one the primitive one. So if I do simply console dot log for my object, or if I do console dot log any number, so you can simply get the output. Now further, let's suppose I create a function which says change my values, and inside that if I'm, let's suppose I passing the my object and the any number. So in this method I am going to change the value of my object, and my object dot name, this is the updated name, right? And here any number which is going to be updated as well. Now I have to set the value to 10. Now again, I am going to print those two values, console.log my object and console.object. Let me print my uh, my name as well. Sorry, right? So these are the three value I'm going to print. So at first you would get the coding locker, of course. Then next you would get the one. Now this is changing the value of updated name and the 100. So what would be the output in this my object dot name and the any number? So let me enter this. So let's see one by one. So the first one is the coding locker. Yep, that's what we expected. Then we have one, that is what expected. Now you would see we still have the coding locker. You can see we have the coding locker here, and in the name we also have this coding locker and the one, right? That is so far. Now let's suppose if I call this method, let me re-enter this one. What I'm going to do, removing this one, and here I am going to call change my values method, right? Now see, just a sec. I think we are good. We are good. What's the issue? Cannot set the property of name of undefined. Just a sec. We have name here. We have name here. My object. Okay, we are not passing the values. My bad. So let me pass the values. Sorry about this. This is my object, and this is any number. Okay. Now see. We have the coding locker. We have the one for the first two items, coding locker and one, and then we have the updated name. The name has been updated, which is the updated name, but any number values is still one. Why? Because this was considered as a local variable, and local variables value is set to 100, not the global one. Global one is untouched, this is one, but this my object was passed as a reference, and since when you are changing the value in the my object dot name, the other one function also got changed, and that's why you have the value of updated one. So that is the difference between the object and the value one. Next is currying in JavaScript. Okay, now for the last two question, I'm going to break this video since this has been so long, and this gonna require two or three examples of the currying one, and same bind, call, and apply. These three are going to be little long videos as well. So that's all for today. If you guys have any query and any confusion you would like to ask, then you can simply ask. And there are other videos also created on JavaScript interview questions. You can have a look to those as well. The link has been going to be I'll be providing those links into the description. Thank you for being at Coding Locker. Have a nice day.